Today's hero of the Museum Stories is the modern Kazakhstani sculptor Edward Kazaryan. He is known as the author of the most interesting objects: bronze sculptures, reliefs, ceramic artworks, monumental sculptures embedded into the fabric of the city, like the statue of the Beatles on Koktebe Hill. These and other works, including the work of the family, are the focus of our attention in today's episode of the Museum Stories. We are accustomed to thinking that Edward Kazaryan is primarily a sculptor, although among bronze and ceramic compositions, samples of kinetic sculpture, you are also a famous master of tapestry. Of all these materials you've mastered, which one do you prefer and why?
Бронза, наверное, как...
Bronze is probably my favorite, although it is wrong to say so. I'm fond of clay as well. Regardless of what I'm working with, I always approach it like a sculptor.
И даже гобелены, то есть для меня это тоже такое своего рода перевоплощение каких-то керамических панно.
Even tapestries to me are the reincarnation of ceramic panels sculptures. But again, the material is always of great importance to me. The feeling of tapestry as a living material gave me some new ideas, and I tried not forgetting that too.
Вот, и я старался вот это не терять тоже, хватить.
This is an interesting technique, the very process of form complication, because when we look at the sculptures of Edward Kazaryan, we immediately recognize his own Kazaryan style. They are usually delicate, sometimes resembling refined lace weaving, where images flow into one another, connected and intertwined. How did this Kazaryan style arise and how did it develop?
Вот вообще, как развивался и вообще возникал этот казаряновский стиль?
If we are talking about my earlier works, I tried to fit the whole idea of the world into single, multi-figure composition. Since I cast everything myself, I led the whole process from start to finish.
Все было у меня, так сказать, под рукой, весь процесс от начала до конца. Во-первых, многие...
Firstly, many elements from the casting techniques have eventually spread to my works in other materials. I added them there. This kind of primordial raw details, vapors that connected these figures. This is because I did the casting myself.
Я оставлял, которые соединяли все эти фигуры, все эти объекты. Вот это, видимо, тоже связано.
Gradually improving, getting more opportunities, more experience, I started to complicate the compositions, building up, trying to do the impossible.
Получая, так сказать, больше возможностей, больше опыт, ты шел по усложнению.
Sometimes I look at my works and wonder, how did I do it? Now I move towards more laconic forms. Less often I turn to those complex compositions, although they are also close to me.
Сложным композициям. Вот, хотя они мне тоже близки.
So, is it a path of minimalism?
Я не скажу, что меня сейчас туда потянуло, потому что я, скорее всего, начинал с этого. Первые...
Yes, although I wouldn't say I got drawn to it just now. I started with it in my early days. My first bronze sculptures were very laconic, like the steel sculptures that I'm working on right now. I returned to that. Regarding the plot of your works, how do you build up a story? What images most often appear and how do they come about to you?
Я думаю, что в первую очередь это заложено, наверное, восприятие ребенка.
I think that, first of all, it is inherent in the perception of the child. What I dreamt about, those feelings from the childhood, I needed to unravel this world, so it resonates to its full in my creations.
Как бы развить, вот, чтобы он, скажем, прозвучал в полную силу. Очень характерная работа. Вот я
a very characteristic work titled The Idea of the Sculpture of the World of a Boy with a Fish. I loved it very much. This work is in the USA now. Some people see biblical motives in it, but I literally recreated my childhood memories. When I was little, I was trying to rescue a fish that was kept in the bathtub in the kitchen. Occasionally, it would jump out onto the floor. Whenever I heard that the fish was on the floor, I would stop whatever I was doing at that moment to put the fish back into the bathtub. This process of upholding life inspired me, and in many works there is this sense of the value of the life of any character. Animal, human, child, tree, they have equal value in these works. And they were born in a dream.
То есть они все, скажем, равнозначны по ценности в этих работах. Вот. А рождались они очень часто.
I always kept a notebook and a pencil nearby whenever I had to switch from dreams to reality. You see, if you don't sketch the idea that came in a dream, in the morning it will be gone. It will fly into the space, so to speak.
Космос улетело, не догонишь. Вот. И вот надо было проснуться.
Catch your luck by the tail, as they say. Yes, finding this gap between the dream and reality to sketch the idea. Your work, which was created in 1992, is called Family. It is in the collection of the State Museum of Arts named after Qazaq. The topic is very symbolic. What does the family mean to you in life and in work?
Да, я вот эту работу, честно говоря,
I remember how I assembled this work. I even remember the exact spot in the workshop where I sculpted it. After all this time, I appreciate that this work is in our museum.
вот. Не знаю, наверное, здесь ощущение вот продолжения того разговора, то есть.
The idea behind it, again, is a continuation of conversation about a whole, pristine world.
Важность, то есть единство, важность.
The importance of the unity of a person who comes into the world who needs protection. This aura, created by child's father, mother, and maybe other generations like grandparents. This is the world that they present to the child. My works often touch upon the topic of family.
Может быть, поэтому я вот часто мои работы связаны с семьей.
It is interesting that your work is unusually diverse, both in terms of shape and size, ranging from compact artworks to monumental objects that became a part of urban space in various cities of Kazakhstan. How did this happen? What was your path from interior art pieces to large urban sculptures and art objects?
Городской скульптуре или городскому арт-объекту даже скорее.
Ну, во-первых, у меня образование как монументалист.
Firstly, I'm a monumental sculptor by training. I remember when I was studying in Yerevan, I made sketches of horse riders. I was fascinated then and still admire the monument to David of Sassoon and other works by Kochar. I dreamt of doing something like that. Back then, I was already thinking about works that would be a part of urban landscape.
Делать, но да, я думал уже тогда о работах, которые будут в городской среде находиться.
Talking about the city sculptures, which one would you consider the most interesting and significant to you?
Нередко говорил эту мысль, что вот я хочу к городу относиться как к музею. И все-таки город – это творческая среда.
I often shared my thoughts that I would like to think of the city as a museum. In my understanding, a city is a creative environment in itself. It should inspire and have some bold, experimental and creative masterpieces. Moreover, open space allows you to place large works that can fill and connect the sculpture with the environment. Based on this thinking, I concluded that sculptures should be placed everywhere, whether it is a shopping center or other public space. The shopping center is challenging. Although there are many people there for artworks, it is not an easy place to be. The space is drowning in advertising stands and all that sort of things. People are shopping hectically, thus making the task more difficult than, say, displaying sculpture in a museum. So an artist must adapt the artwork to the environment. Yes, and it's artist's mission to grasp people's attention, even if it's just for a moment. People will look around and see the artwork next to them. And children, they are less influenced by this bustling and notice everything. If we are talking about the works that are in the public spaces, I would name Scales of Time sculpture as my favorite and most significant work. Let's talk about it then. When was it created and how did you come up with this idea? Were there any difficulties of adapting to the interior environment of the shopping center?
Даже большого пространства торгового центра.
Ну, идея, в общем-то, неожиданно произошла.
The idea came up unexpectedly. I've got this series of bronze sculptures, columns of Adam, Eve and others. While I was working on them, I got this idea. I decided to approach it in a different way. Firstly, I decided to animate it, add kinetic elements. Kinetic art is a separate art form in itself. This moment when sculpture receives a movement becomes alive in a sense. The movement is the art here. I felt it then. It was a game of some sort. In the process of working on this sculpture, I realized that I could do anything. Then it was necessary to stop at the right moment because I realized that I could make everything move. At least it felt like it.
В процессе этой работы, что, если так можно сказать, могу все. То есть то есть там уже нужно было мне остановиться вовремя, то есть, потому что я
I decided to leave only essential parts. Construction grew taller in the process. I thought it would stop at 15 meters, then it grew up to 18. Everything was assembled in parts, some at the workshop, some at my studio. When everything was assembled and ready, I felt sheer happiness. I realized what kind of artwork I created.
Но когда собрали и все пошло, то есть это совершенно, да, то есть я понял, какую штуку вообще сделать.
I would also like to talk about your experience in international projects and the way foreign audiences react to you.
И как вас встречает зарубежный зритель?
Самые вот эти первые выставки, когда мы тогда еще вот группой ребят.
Our first international exhibitions. We were young and supported by good people who invited us to participate. For us, it was a breakthrough. We were taking the works that we made here in Kazakhstan by our own hands. Our country is still striving to do this, create from scratch, starting from the idea, using local materials, to the finished product. We were doing it then already, so we took what we had then and exhibited there. The audience found them interesting. We felt understanding from their side.
Ну, не знаю, десятки зарубежных выставок, некоторые совершенно, то есть особенные, которыми я горжусь там.
There were dozens of foreign exhibitions in Europe and the US, some of which I was especially proud of. They were inspiring, giving the feeling that you and your work were part of the world's fine art. When an arts collector who has a Picasso or Temur in his collection sees the works of a young, aspiring artist from far away, purchases your work into his collection, and even maybe slightly moves Picasso a little to hang your work on the same wall. It feels strange, but you understand that they look at things differently. We thought that we are young, nobody knows who we are. We were happy to just be invited, and they look at things objectively. It didn't matter how big or small we were invited, our art was exhibited, and it all that mattered.
Старается на это как-то объективно смотреть. Вот. Больше мы, меньше, но мы там.
Let new ideas come up and new international projects take place. Sure, thank you. We are dreaming of visiting your workshop. I will be glad to show it. is a fantastic material that is not limited in its expressive possibilities. Edward Kazaryan creates incredible ceramic objects, including stunning panel reliefs. It's amazing that these art objects are precasted. They can be dismantled and reassembled in a new space at any time, like a jigsaw puzzle. What characters inhabit the universe of Edward Kazaryan? Turtle as a symbol of the universe, dog and a bird, fish and a symbol of the world tree. But the most important part is the human world. Human as the main image, and all those animalistic and plant motifs that are found in his environment are organically woven into the space of a single composition of this ceramic panel and other works of Edward Kazaryan.
Мадонна с младенцем – это образ, который вдохновлял художников с древних времен, и этот лейтмотив наблюдается на протяжении всей истории мировой художества.
The Madonna and Child is an image that has inspired artists since ancient times. This leitmotif has been observed throughout the history of world art culture. Edward Kazaryan was no exception, referring to the theme of Madonna and Child in his works. These Madonnas appear holding or embracing their babies, or babies appear in their womb. The mystery of birth is still ahead of them. This theme comes up in wide variations. Most often these are reliefs or compositions where the plane and spatial solutions are combined. Brushed metal components are combined or complemented by shiny surfaces or inclusions. In 2019, further development of the topic leads to the creation of the series of works called Madonna in Stockings or Graces. Partly humorous, partly ironic, but definitely unusual works. They have a recognizable share of charm and personality, even though the images are generalized, yet the endless charm of grace is present in every piece.
Но тем не менее, это бесконечное очарование грации присутствует в каждом из этих произведений.
Most compositions of the 2000s are similar in principle. The whole set of being characters, which are combined in sculptural reliefs, are contained in a common single compositional field, which can express a house, a boat, or, as in this case, a balloon. Tell us how they were created and what are the features that form the recognizable Kazaryan style, which we have already discussed today.
Вы правы, потому что здесь объединяющим, да, является.
You are right. Here we've got the unifying object which can be filled with some kind of world, although often it is something living. For example, a turtle or other animal can bring the whole composition together. In this particular work, the balloon represents the earth, and the person just travels on it. It looks like he got attached to the side of it and is carried by Mother Nature, all animals, everything that has existed on this earth from time immemorial and continues to exist. It all flies harmoniously in the universe, and so do we. In general, as far as bronze is concerned, it's an art form that allows you to make copies if the molds were preserved. Do you make copies of your own work? Is it possible? As a rule, in bronze, I don't make copies for a number of reasons. First, it is important for me to call things original, and that this particular sculpture is the only one in the entire universe. And besides, the technique I'm using implies the destruction of the mold in the process of creation. Since I make the molds from wax with my own hands, it's vital to me to have this connection between the energy of my fingers, sculpting the mold to the final bronze sculpture. Using a mold single time enables to preserve this warmth of creation. This is very important to me. This approach is typical for this technique. This kinetic art object was created in 2018 during the International Kinetic Sculpture Festival. We are looking forward to new creations by Edward Kazaryan. Stay tuned to our next episodes of the Museum Stories on Qazaq TV and subscribe to our YouTube channel.